Leonie Dawson refuses to be categorized. The podcast. My loves, today I want to talk to you about my process in changing towards doing digital art instead of paper and ink art and stuff like that. And I want to talk about the tools that I use as well because I get asked those questions a lot. So, thank you for the reader who emailed in to request this podcast episode. If you have anything that you would like me to talk shit about, please email support@leoniedawson.com. We can add them to my podcast talk shit about list. The very official podcast talk shit about list. So, here's the thing, throughout my career, I've mostly just been a handmade kind of lady. And so I would do everything on paper with pen. And what I would primarily use was waterproof ink pens like Uniball, eye pens, usually in medium, and you can get those really cheaply. And they're great because they're waterproof so that you can paint over them as well. And then I would use either watercolor paints by Winsor Newton or gouache paints to create really vibrant colors, and usually would do that on watercolor paper just for that nice texture. At a certain point, I started doing it kind of as a semi-digital collage. So what I would end up doing was I colored in, I painted lots and lots of backgrounds using watercolors, using inks, just made really beautiful textures really on watercolor paper, and then I scanned it all in. And that was kind of my paper supply, my coloring in supply in a way. And then I would do a drawing using a Japanese brush pen like Kuretake, and I would scan that in. I would clean it up in Photoshop by removing out any extra creases or ink spots or whatever, and then I would layer that over the top of the colored images, and I would cut out the colored images so they were kind of collaged behind it, in order to create my artwork. And that was all groovy. That was kind of my process. So it was fully handmade for 10 years or so, and then I've been doing the combination for about five years or more. No, sweet Jesus, how long has it been? I don't know, maybe 5 years. Sure, whatever. Let's go with that. And during that time, I've definitely thought to myself, oh, I wish I could switch to doing it just totally digitally, because it was slightly a process, going to get my brush pens out and do drawings, and I would kind of end up batching it, because it would take a bit longer. Then I'd have to wait for the ink to dry, and then I would walk over to the house and get my husband to scan it all in and clean it all up, send it to me, and then I can start collaging and putting the images together. So during that time I was really kind of wishing that I could find something that was a little bit more simple, where I could still feel like I'm making something, but kind of clear up those extra layers of kind of technical details really that prevented me from creating even more. So my husband, bless him, has been trying to help me move into more digital stuff because he knew I wanted to do it, and he would just buy me Wacom tablets, and he would buy me those digital scribe pens and things like that. And because I'm kind of somebody who would like to make a change, but then is kind of a little bit resistant to spending money on that, and I know that's funny, but it's totally just the way that I am. And so he usually will buy it for me, and they'll be like, I bought this thing, why don't you try it out? And so I tried using the Wacom, and I tried using other digital pens that you use with your iPad, and I fucking hated them. It just didn't feel intuitive whatsoever, and there was always the difficulty of knowing where my pen was lined up over the screen, and there's usual delays on that, and then also it's really tricky to get the variation in the thickness of the line, by pressing harder and going lighter, all that kind of stuff. So I was kind of right up to this year, I was like, well, I've tried them, I've spent money on it, I've like bought a couple of Wacom's now, and I didn't love them whatsoever. Um, and so I'll just stick with what I'm doing. And then quarantine hit, and my husband was like, fuck it. Like, let's just try out like getting an Apple Pen. Let's see what like the big deal is. And guys, there's a reason why Apple Pens are the price that they are. It's because they are fucking amazing. From the very moment I started using an Apple Pen with my iPad, I was like, oh, this is what it's meant for. And you totally realize that the iPad was designed to be used with the Apple Pen, and that they were designed to be used together like a pad and paper. That's why it's called an iPad, and it just took me so long to work that out. Anyway, I'm so fucking thrilled that I did work it out, because I immediately became so obsessed, and it has been hands down my most favorite creative discovery of this year. I will say, like, as soon as I got into it, I was like, oh my God, what that means is that I need to get the Apple Pen 2, and I need to upgrade to a iPad Pro. And I'm not just going to like get the iPad Pro, but I'm going to get the iPad Pro Max, like the largest size that you can get. And spoiler alert, hilariously enough, the thing that I use most of all is just my stock standard iPad with the stock standard just Apple Pen, because I like the size and the thinness that much better, and it's that much more portable. So I fucking love it. My iPad and my Apple Pen are dreamy. And if I had to choose between getting an Apple, like an iPad and an iPad Pro, especially an iPad Pro Max, I would absolutely just go with the iPad, hands down. So I think what I'm going to use, I was feeling a bit guilty about it, but I think what I've decided to do is like just stop being guilty about it, and just I'm going to just use my iPad for a day, on a daily basis. And then when I want to do kind of like serious creation, like designing all of the pages for the 2020 Goal Getter books, that all got done on the iPad Pro, because it's that much bigger, and so it was much easier to design pages. So I really love it for those bigger projects, but for everyday shit, I fucking love the iPad. Um, Things that the apps that I use on the iPad, in order to create the kind of digital art that I use, I use Procreate, which is an app. I think it's about $10 or so online. Um, and it's well worth it. It is amazing, and that's where I create all of my digital art now. There is lots and lots and lots and lots of digital like art apps out there now. For me, the thing that I keep coming back to is Procreate, and most professional illustrators use Procreate as an app. Um, and I also use GoodNotes, and I think it's GoodNotes 5 or GoodNotes 10 or some shit. I don't know, but whatever is on, like whatever GoodNotes is available on the app, just get that. Again, it's about $10, um, and which seems expensive for an app. However, GoodNotes is something. It's not really for making art per se, more it's for taking notes. And you think about like how much money do you spend on stationery every year? Well, using GoodNotes is kind of like a stationery replacement in a lot of ways. So the way that I use GoodNotes is, I have a number of notebooks set up in there. And you can choose different cover designs for each of them, and then you can organize them all beautifully. And so I do all of my journaling in there. I have a little art journal. I still have my physical art journal because I'm not going to give that shit up. But it's really useful to have a digital one as well. Then I also have lots and lots of PDFs in there from various things. And in GoodNotes, you can just scribe directly on there. And it's also so useful, especially if you're studying, to get the PDFs of stuff. And, you can go through and highlight it all. You can take notes. It is amazing. So I fucking love GoodNotes. And I love GoodNotes for the stationery side. And then I love Procreate for the artiste side. Now, I will say on the Procreate side, there are a lot of people selling Procreate brushes out there, and I ended up talking to a professional illustrator friend of mine, and I was like, give me the lowdown. By the way, it's at Katie Draws on Instagram. She's amazing. I love Katie Chappell. She's so sweet. And I told her that I've adopted her. I'm like her Australian auntie now. So if you do go follow Katie, make sure you give her a little shout out and say, Auntie Leonie sent me. Anyway, I said to Katie, like, dude, how many Procreate pens and brushes should I buy? Like, all of the ones that I can install. And she's like, none. Just use the Procreate ones that are there because they're great. Like, she's a professional illustrator and she's never had to buy one. So you can totally fall down this swampland of like looking for extra shit for Procreate. But there's so much stuff in there already. I would just recommend just using what's in there, and you will fucking love it. I also got very obsessed, and for a month or so I did, I think, about 45 portraits of people in Procreate, which was so fun. And like, the thing I love about Procreate is, so what you can do is you can take a photo using your app or just grab one from online or whatever, and then you add it as a layer in Procreate, and then you can trace over it with all different kinds of pens and mediums and stuff like that. Then you can get rid of the back, like the photo, and you've got an amazing traced outline that then you can decorate in all kinds of ways. And yeah, that was so fucking fun. I highly recommend that experience. I went and showed my when I visited my husband's parents last, and I showed her my iPad and I showed her the portraits I've been doing and how you can just like add photos in and start drawing over the top of them. And she was like, oh, this is fun. This is so cool. And even the other day when I found myself in this kind of little historic town nearby called Gympie, and I had a couple of hours to kill because my eldest was at a workshop, and it's a beautiful, like, it's got lots of beautiful buildings in there. So I just went around and took photos on my camera and on my phone, and airdropped them onto my iPad, added them into Procreate, and then use them as kind of like the base drawings behind, like using the base that then I could trace over and really experiment drawing with architecture and stuff. It was really, really fun and really inspirational. Now, I do know some people with their Apple Pens, they will buy like Apple Pen covers on them and stuff, but I don't bother. I've got just a case that has a slot for it to go into, and so I just like shoving it in there, and that works really well for me. But you can get really cute ones like that make your you make your Apple Pen look like a vintage retro pen or some bullshit. It's pretty cute. So that's me. I've made the transition and I'm well and truly very in love. I'm always still going to have like physical art projects, so I always have my art journal that I draw and paint and collage in, and I'm still going to do paintings outside of that, but I fucking love just being able to create stuff on the fly and share it on social media or whatever. So if you ever see like scrawled notes from me or whatever, that's just me on Procreate, having a rip-roaring time. And if you have seen the 2021 Goal Getter books, which are out now. All of the new designs in them are all done on Procreate, and they fit pretty seamlessly with my hand-drawn stuff. Like, you can still create very handmade looking stuff digitally, and it's about 1 billion times easier. So it was so much faster for me to create them doing it digitally this time than having to like fill up hundreds of pages with my good old Kuretake brush pen and then getting my husband to scan them in one by one. So that's me. Digital art, I fucking love it. I'm so into it, and I just have fun and play with it. I've also converted a bunch of my friends into using it as well, and they've all completely adored it as well. There's so many great tutorials online about how to use them on YouTube, so check out like iPad art, and there's a guy on YouTube as well that I absolutely adore. His name is Samuel Suresh, Suresh, and he is an Australian med student, and he talks about how he uses GoodNotes for taking his medical notes and how he uses his iPad to the max, and also he's just got the most beautiful way and eloquent way and scrumptious way of talking about the importance of taking responsibility for your own education, your own responsibility for learning and using the tools that you've got available to you to their utmost ability. And it's really fucking inspirational. So check out Samuel Suresh on YouTube, and Bardo Brushes on YouTube have some good shit as well. That's BARDOT brushes. I hope this has been useful. If you like this kind of shit, if you want me to talk about any other kind of shit, just email me, let me know, support@leoniedawson.com. And I would really fucking appreciate it if you like this podcast. Please, I don't know, think about leaving me a review or some shit. I don't know, whatever. That'd be great if you did, though. I appreciate it. All right, boo-boos, I hope you have an awesome day, and may you continue creating prolifically and sharing your beautiful goodness with the world. Bye!